let's talk about these games we have coming up in this next week of Big 12 action. We'll start with 11 a.m. West Virginia at Cincinnati. This rivalry, maybe? I don't know. Mountaineers going to play Cincinnati. I love Cincinnati. I think they're being slept on this year. I like Sorsby a lot. What do y'all feel about this game?
Sorsby's him, man.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I looked up his stats from last year, he's already accumulated more passing yards. He has the same amount of passing touchdowns, and I think he has 1 or 2 fewer picks than he did his freshman season. I think he's definitely trajecting in the right direction, and him being a sophomore right now is definitely going to be helping Cincinnati out in the future. I do think that they also have the support staff to help pull this win out, and I honestly can see them beating West Virginia by more than 5 points. I think it could be 10. But on the flip end of that, Neil Brown is fighting for his job at this point. From everything that I've been hearing and what I've been reading is if Neil Brown doesn't make a bowl game, he's done. So with that, them being 4-4 right now and looking at the rest of their schedule, finding 2 wins on that is going to be extremely complicated. And I think that they're going to come out extremely scrappy, but I don't think that they're going to be able to pull off an upset on this one.
Yeah, the moment a coach says you should come to the games just because it's fun, it's not going well.
Great week of practice.
So but Cincinnati is a really scrappy team. I mean, they came to Lubbock and took Texas Tech down to the wire, and Tech had to kick a very long last-second field goal to win that game. And at the time, Tech fans were ready to start lighting lime scooters on fire. Well, never mind. They do that for celebrating purposes. They're ready to jump off the bandwagon. And Cincinnati has really proven to be a dark horse, not a championship contender in the Big 12, but definitely a force to be reckoned with moving forward.
Hey, you mentioned it, Flatland. This Cincinnati team, they are about a hair's width away from being a one-loss team, right?
Yeah.
If they have any semblance of clock management late in that Texas Tech game, they should be able to win that game. And the Pitt game, if you remember, they lost to Pittsburgh 28-27. That's another game that was within reach, right? So Cincinnati could be in Iowa State's shoes right now, truly. What do you think, Ralph?
I love Brendan Sorsby. Arm talent, leadership, pocket presence, knows when to scramble. To me, I mean, you watch him for 60 minutes, it's a clear NFL guy. And, you know, I don't think this Cincinnati team is constructed as well as it should be 3 years out from a trip to the college football playoff. I think we all understand why. But you guys are absolutely right. West Virginia's falling apart. But back against the wall, Nico Marchiol is a guy you want. He's a dirtbag. He's a gamer. He's gritty. You know, he's not the most talented guy in the entire world, but there's not a situation Nico Marchiol is not going to go out there, give you everything he has. It isn't enough. And I don't think it's going to be enough against Cincinnati.
All right, there we go. Let's talk about those Cyclones, Brownie. Let's get right into it. Your beloved dumpster fire. Number 17, Cyclones head to Kansas. I like the Cyclones to right the ship here. I mean, Kansas, you talk about a team that's fallen apart at the seams. I mean, Kansas, golly, I had them as a dark horse Big 12 championship contender at the beginning of the season. And, I mean, these guys, they're back to good old-fashioned Kansas. I mean, Brownie, are you that panicky going into this game? What are you thinking?
Honestly, I'm not. I think the primary concern for us is how we're going to deal with Jalen Daniels. Is he going to be the K-State Jalen Daniels, or is he going to be the earlier in the season throwing like 3 touchdown passes and no interceptions for 450 yards Jalen Daniels? I think last week was a piece of humble pie that we needed and come back down to earth that our defense can't always bail us out. I also think that it showed vulnerabilities in our offense, where if you break up our rhythm, you break up our plays and force it to become down to like that last minute drive, we fall apart. I also thought it was kind of weird how we could score in 45 seconds, but we couldn't score in 1 minute and 42 seconds. I think Kansas is going to be in more of a world of hurt because from what I've been hearing from the KU athletic department, there's going to be far more Cyclones there than there is going to be Jayhawk fans there. And if that's the case, then it's not even a home game for Kansas, and being a 3-point favorite is not going to mean anything. I do think Iowa State turns around, but Kansas had that bye week after getting absolutely obliterated during the Sunflower Showdown.
Yeah, Kansas has just been, I want to say it's surprising, but there's a part of me that just wasn't surprised. I just never could get on board with the Kansas hype just because they're Kansas. They have a fantastic head coach, and Jalen, all of a sudden the name is escaping me. Their quarterback is really good, but they just can't seem to put it together this year.
I think getting beat was probably one of the better things to happen to Iowa State. And usually you like early in the season to schedule some of your toughest opponents. That way you're not shocked. Like you know what to prepare for. And the thing about Iowa State is this is their weakest strength of schedule since 2009. And I think before they took on Texas Tech, the Power 4 opponents that they played, average rating was 102nd in pass yards per game. So they just really hadn't been tested. I think this loss to Texas Tech is it's gonna go one of two ways. Everything's gonna fall apart, or this is gonna be the thing that says, all right, like to actually be competitive, we got to be a little more serious. We got to prepare a little bit better. And Kansas, they're a decent edge rushing team and they're athletic on offense. But where it matters in the trenches, that's not something that they have to offer. I think they're going to get out physical by Iowa State in this game.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And looking at their schedule here, the Cincinnati game is difficult. The Kansas State game is difficult, but those are both home games, right? So Iowa State's got a real opportunity here to finish. Potentially.
I just want 10 wins, man. Just give me 10 wins.
Yeah.
I don't care how it happens. Just give me 10.
It's there for you, Brownie. It's there for you. It really is there for you.
About 10 wins for Indiana and Iowa State, meaning the apocalypse for the rest of us.
Oh, yeah, because then you guys are going to have to start moving your goalposts.
I think there is a passage in Revelation about that. I think
something about
Cyclones. Armageddon will rise.
That's exactly what happens when you get rid of Farmageddon, damn it.
It's going to burn the entire Midwest to the ground because there's going to be 1 year of a gap. Iowa State has a real shot, though. That Farmageddon game might very well be who gets into the Big 12 championship game type of game.
I really think that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Speaking of four horsemen, the Red Raiders are riding high. Now, they are riding a little uncomfortable. They're riding bareback because they don't have a saddle, unfortunately. But they're riding high going into this Colorado game. Number 21 Buffs coming to Lubbock. They're a 3.5-point favorite. I wish this was a night game, man. I would love Texas Tech if this was a night game. I still think Tech can win this game, though.
Yeah, riding bareback, going back to our West Texas Comanche roots there. This is going to be the game I think that really kind of determines the rest of Texas Tech season. These kinds of games, if you're a Texas Tech fan, they scare the hell out of you because there's so much hype. You've got Fox Big Noon kickoff coming. It's the Patrick Mahomes game. You've got Deion Sanders coming into town. And these are the kind of games that, regardless of how good Texas Tech seems to be, that you just kind of fall on your face. Going back to like 2013, you're ranked in the top 15, 7-1. There's whatever the version of Fox Big Noon kickoff was called back then was in town. And you just get blown out by Oklahoma State in the same circumstances. And last year you have the year before, you have the same deal with Baylor in town, and what was a really bad Baylor team, in my opinion, that just kind of took you to town during the same circumstances with Patrick Mahomes going into the Ring of Honor. That said, this is a much better Texas Tech team than you have seen in at least a decade, going back to 2009.
Yeah,
I think Colorado matches up really well with Texas Tech. I think there's an opportunity for this thing to just be an all-out shootout. But I think if the Tech defense can kind of find a way to pull it together and just slow Shador down, I think the Red Raiders will come out with a win.
Oh man, I hate to do this, but there's one way to beat Colorado, and it's defensive line pressure. And I'm pretty sure that Texas Tech is tied for last in the history of the universe in defensive line pressure. I don't think they have a defensive lineman with more than one sack. I think they have several defensive linemen that play that haven't had a sack yet this year. So that part scares me. I think that it's going to be tough for Colorado to slow down Texas Tech's passing attack. However, when you flip it to the other side, who is going to be covering Colorado's second and third receivers? Because Jimmy Horn Jr., I think their number 2 receiver is like one of the all career leaders in receptions in the entire NCAA. So I think the game sets up, outside of being a road game, the game sets up really well for Colorado to roll.
All right, Brownie, you're the rubber match then. You're the tiebreaker.
Oh man. I guess it kind of all comes down to the refs and how they want to ref it. Are we going to get the Patrick Mahomes
In classic
NFL
Big 12 fashion, right?
Are we going to get the Patrick Mahomes NFL refs here, where your right tackle can false start every single play and be able to get rid of the ball before anything happens? Or are we going to have another one where it's illegal hands to the face on an interception and it was actually a holding?
Well, if we do get the Mahomes refs, I can assure you that they will be 100% slanted towards Dion and the Colorado Buffaloes. There's no way they're coming and giving us any home cooking here.
Can I ask y'all a question as the newbie here? Because I'm used to like Pac-12 officiating. That was my life. And
We're sorry.
So sorry, man. But
Pac-12 officiating was like everything is fine, and then in the fourth quarter, one team gets a 6th down. Like things that would happen in the Pac-12 are not things that exist. Like that was the whole joke about Pac-12 officiating, is that that insane things would happen in fourth quarters that were like impossible to explain, like the lights over Roswell or something. In the Big 12, every call is wrong.
Yeah, welcome to the Big 12, man.
So it's a completely different beast, because every call is wrong. But then if every call is wrong, then I guess it's right. It's been a whirlwind. I don't understand. It is objectively worse as far as the totality of the game.
Yeah.
But I haven't, and thank God for replay, because I've seen probably 10 to 12 targeting calls overturned, which is nice, but I've been just blown away by the fact that like 2 plays into the game,
we used to have a saying,
somebody will blatantly false start, and then the rest will just pick up the flag and be like, "Oh, just kidding. I know you saw somebody false start, but we actually just dropped this. It was an accident." So
did
I don't know.
Just wait, basketball season's coming. It gets better.
Yeah, wait till
basketball's going to be even worse.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
And the worst.
I remember seeing
the TCU Baylor game though. Did y'all watch the TCU Baylor game?
Yeah.
There was a sequence there where Baylor had the ball down near the goal line, and they got like 17 false starts in rapid succession, and no one was moving. It was just the most bananas thing, like what you're talking about, Ralph. It's just like, I was like, okay, I mean, this helps us so fine, but like, what is going on? Like, just unwatchable at times.
Well, even like in our game for Iowa State and Texas Tech, our tight end was an ineligible receiver downfield on 2 quick RPOs that were in the wide receiver's hands within 2 milliseconds of getting the ball. And when you watch the replay, he wasn't even out of the backfield yet when they called him ineligible downfield. I was like, okay, so was he like covered up by the receiver, or like something must have happened like in a formation? But then you would think that it was like an illegal formation or something and not an eligible receiver. No. But also, if you go back and look at the touchdown, sorry, Iowa State fans, during the UCF game, our left guard is 2 yards into the end zone when we scored that touchdown before the ball was snapped, and there was no false start on that. So, welcome to
I
the
don't
Big
get it.
12.
I want to go back to mystery surprise call in the fourth quarter. I don't like this. Everything is wrong all the time.
Well, those Pac-12 refs were just doing what they could to get people to stay up for Pac-12 after dark. You just had to see what was going to happen in the fourth quarter.
I'm
I
afraid
remember,
that some of those unemployed Pac-12 refs ended up in the Big 12.
I remember seeing, I think it was
Mostly on the
Utah
red
fans
phone.
during the Pac-12 realignment saga who were grouching about going to the Big 12, but they're like, man, at least we don't have to deal with these Pac-12 refs anymore. And I just cackled by myself in my car when I saw that.
Wrong.
I mean, it's worth remembering. Colorado is the original beneficiary of a fifth down, right? Like back in the Big 8 days.
5 quarters or five,
yeah.
whatever it was, 5 downs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's got to be some that they're the linchpin that's holding all of this together, right? All of this horrible officiating between our two conferences. All right, Ralph, let's talk about something that should make you a little more happy. Arizona State hosting UCF, not having to go all the stinking way to Orlando like the Wildcats did. Man, I have been so happy with what I've seen from the Sun Devils this year since we last talked, since you were last on the show. You know, I love that coach that y'all have. I love Arizona State at home, too. Arizona State plays great at home. I like them to beat the Golden Knights here. Tell me I'm wrong, man.
There's a rumor that Cam Scatterboom might not play.
Ooh.
Well, okay, so maybe I'm wrong.
What?
That's tough. Like he kind of is the team, right? They have decent depth at running back. I don't think it'll prevent them from having an opportunity to win, but he breaks so many tackles. He gives you so many extra opportunities that, you know, if he's banged up, I guess he's got a collarbone. Sam Levitt, the quarterback's got healing from a broken rib. Their defense is going to have to be the one that gets it done. And UCF is so creative in the way that they run the ball that I can see it maybe being an issue for Arizona State. I love RJ Harvey. I think he's a fantastic player. But I tell you what, I don't understand UCF bringing in KJ Jefferson. I think at this point they're probably better off just moving on from him. It's gonna be a close one. It's gonna be a tough one. I'm kind of where it's house money. 6 wins was really the best thing that I think a lot of Arizona State fans could hope for this season. But 6 wins with a dominant running back and a very feisty defense. Very feisty. I mean, you saw it when, you know, Texas Tech got us in a 14-0 hole 5 minutes into the game. And then when the defense actually got an opportunity to play without being on their heels, they were nasty. And so my hope is that some of these tricks and gimmicks that UCF brings out aren't as effective, and that ASU's defense is disciplined. But I got to say, like, I'm 50-50 on this one because Cam Scatterboom's 50-50 on playing in the game. But if he suits up, you can guarantee they're going to give him the ball 30 times like they have every single week.
Hey, Arizona State has 6 wins, and guess who has 6 losses? Them Arizona Wildcats, man. This is like best case scenario.
Oh my God.
And you thought that it was going to be the opposite at this point too. I mean, you thought Arizona State was going to, Arizona was going to come and kind of have their way with the Big 12, and they've just fallen flat. And Arizona State, they remind me of a Cincinnati, just scrappy.
Yeah, it's been a fun year. I'm want to go to El Paso. I've never been so excited to go to El Paso in my life. Yeah. Give us a bowl game against some random ACC team, and we're gonna have a good time.
Well, listen, this is one of 2 games left on the schedule that I feel fairly confident for Arizona State in, excuse me. You know, not to say that you couldn't pull an upset against a BYU or a Kansas State, but those are certainly going to be a lot. I mean, Kansas State's going to be very difficult in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. BYU, maybe you can catch BYU napping at home, right? But I mean, heck, 8 wins, first year in the Big 12. Let's freaking go. That's awesome.
Yeah, and other 4 corner.
It's been so much fun this year, and I'm just glad they're not in the basement anymore, living playing Herm ball. It was just it was such a disaster. It wasn't exciting football at all. To have a chance going into every week is really cool. To have your head coach be 34,
Yeah.
It's wild. I mean, he's the first
Dude is
coach,
literally my age. He is literally my age. Like,
and he's the
bringing
first
Arizona
coach
State back from
to
the
ever
dead.
be born in the 1990s to lead his team to a bowl.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh,
Some of
jeez.
those celebrations, like post game too, when Arizona State fans ran the field, he was like celebrating just as much as the student section was. And I was like, hell yeah, dude, like get it. And they're
Yeah.
like, we won. And he's like, I know, let's go.
Because he was one, and someday when Brock Purdy's the head coach of Iowa State, like you're gonna get that feeling too. It's gonna be awesome.
Right.
It's cool to have one of your. It's cool and not cool to have one of your own lead the team, because if they fail, then that means you fail. Like, because
Flatland is all
Yeah,
about
we've been
that.
on the other side
Flatland
of
is
that
all
with
about that.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
As
like-
fans, we all think we could do this. And I host a Wednesday night spaces, and I have for years on Twitter. Kenny Dillingham used to come to those spaces for a whole year while he was at Florida State and Oregon, sit in on those spaces and then message me afterward and be like, man, I love these fans. I want that job. And then he got it. And I was like, Kenny from Spaces is the head coach? This is insane.
Kenny from Spaces. Yeah.
That's his name now, Kenny from Spaces.
Kenny from Spaces, baby.
Yes, he's Kenny from Spaces.
That's awesome. I mean, that's TCU's situation with basketball. Jamie Dixon played for the Frogs back in the 80s and was one of the best point guards we ever had up until recent years. And now, I mean, it's funny because now expectations are higher. And it's like, oh, well, why can't we win? Why can't we win more tournament games? It's like, bro, we are in the tournament. I am able to write down TCU on my bracket. That is like cloud nine for me. I am thrilled. You know,
It's the same way with us with Fred Hoiberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just used to being in the bracket, so I'll sit here and watch all you little people.
All right. So
the years before Tubby Smith were pretty brutal, though. I think there was a year where Tech went like 0 and they lost like all but one of the Big 12 conference games in 2011.
I've been there. Cough, cough, Steve Prohm. Cough, cough.
No, I've spent most of my basketball fandom there. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, golly. Neil Doherty? Ugh. All right. So moving on to the Frogs. Oklahoma State coming to TCU. Man, this may be the most confident I've felt about a game all year outside of Long Island, which means, of course, the Frogs are probably going to find a way to screw it up. But Alan Bowman is a statue. He needs his AARP card. I mean, forget getting a real job. He needs to just like go ahead and file for Social Security. I cannot wrap my mind around why Oklahoma State is so bad with as many returning starters as they have. The cupboard was the opposite of bare. It was completely full. But here we go. Frogs have an opportunity to be bowl eligible for the first time. Well, national championship notwithstanding, first time since 2020 that the Frogs have been bowl eligible. This will actually be the first time we have gone to a regular bowl game, not the playoffs, since the 2018 Cheez-It Bowl. So what the hell is life, right? But
I was at that game.
Okay,
you were at that game. I am sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a terrible game.
Yes, a hilariously terrible game. But I like the Frogs. I mean, is there any reason that I should be horrified going into Saturday night, y'all?
No,
Well, I mean, do we really think Mike Gundy's
fire.
not going to win a game in the Big 12 this year?
I think so. I
I mean,
think
Careful.
Gundy has lost the locker room. I really do. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen this offseason. Like, is it going to be a conversation with the AD where, he just puts in his resignation and they move on? Is it something where they're going to have to look at his buyout? I haven't looked at his current buyout, but I'm assuming it's quite significant. Or, I mean, what else is there to do other than go out and splash a bunch of NIL money that they don't have?
I mean, which of these games could they even win, though? Because they go on the road twice. They have Texas Tech at home, and Texas Tech is peaking right now. Like, I don't think they can win any of these three games.
I don't either. I really
Except
don't.
for maybe us. Like, maybe, like if they run the ball, I mean, we can't stop a freaking nosebleed. Maybe they can run the ball against us and beat us. But,
Alec Gordon hasn't
I
looked
mean, it
good.
would be the most Big 12 thing ever for Oklahoma State to go win this weekend. But I mean, I don't really see it either. I mean, it'd be the most Big 12 thing and the most TCU thing for Oklahoma State to go win this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
kidding.
it's hard to imagine the Mike Gundy era at Oklahoma State ending this way. Just winning 9 to 10 games a season, and then all of a sudden you go 3-9.
Iowa State fans now. We haven't gotten to that 10 win yet, though.
I mean, it's not all that dissimilar from how the Gary Patterson era ended at TCU, right? I mean, this guy, he was TCU. He made TCU a winning program when TCU hadn't been since the 50s, right? And then all of a sudden, he just loses his touch, right? And you have Cheez It Bowl devolves into losing season after losing season after losing season. And it's like at a certain point, you got to let the legend go, right? Like, hey, you got your statue on campus. There you go. But we got to move in another direction. Right?
And I think NIL is also part of it. I don't think Gundy is quite set up for NIL.
Patterson was the same way.
Yeah, and when you even look at it, he had, 20 of 22 returning starters, and he was talking about roster retention and how hard it is and how he had to re-equip Okie State through NIL. I was like, bro, you have 20 out of 22 starters coming back. Like, what are you talking about where you had to go splash a bunch of cash for your starting roster? Like, you are the pinnacle of most stable program in the Big 12 right now. And you're complaining that you had to go out and get kids like that. It's absurd. It's like he's almost trying to come up with excuses on why they suck this year.
There's something else wrong though. Like it's happening over time. It's not happening in such a tight space that people can say,
Right.
"Oh, like Oklahoma State's falling apart." But Spencer Sanders leaving instead of starting, along with 17 other players before the 2023 season, being down to Arizona State at half, losing out of conference the way that they lost last year, like the way that they recovered surprised everybody. So returning 20 out of 22 starters for a team that was better than everyone thought it should be, some of it's regression to the mean. And then I asked somebody else, I'm like, how do you fix not being able to tackle in season? Because I know Jaheim Brown broke 11 tackles in one game. They had 3 missed tackles on the final play where BYU beat them on the final drive. And it was going into that Arizona State game, and Cam Scatterby was really hard to tackle anyway. So I was asking, I was like, how do you fix tackling in season? And this is somebody who had played in the NFL before, and they were like, oh, you don't.
You don't.
Yeah, you actually, it's only an off-season thing. It's only a mentality thing. You can't just tell people who don't tackle to tackle that. Otherwise, everyone would just do that. And so, the way, and you go back even before that, the way Derek Mason left, right? There's just certain things over time. The OANN t-shirt and pretending he didn't know what it was.
I literally had that picture pulled up and I just exited out of it because I was like, I don't feel like we're going to bring that up.
Yeah, but
nope, we brought it up.
But this week, Mike Gundy calling everybody who's mad a bunch of broke bitches.
Yeah.
Like he said, these are people who can't pay their bills. In the same sentence, you just talked about how they were complaining about not being able to pay their NIL bills.
Yeah, whenever NIL really hit, there were some schools like Texas Tech, very fortunately, jumped right in front of it and was very proactive at getting NIL going within the Texas Tech athletics department. And then you had others like Dabo Sweeney and Clemson who were just like, nah, we don't need that. And Mike Gundy was definitely one of them. And now, Clemson kind of found a way to bounce back, I think, because they're almost a blue blood. Oklahoma State just, I don't think they're going to recover from that at all, at least not with Gundy.
Well, also, let's be real. I mean, the ACC is not as competitive of a conference as the Big 12 is. It's just not, right?
Right.
That makes a difference.
I mean, SMU is like making a run to win that conference, and that says everything you need to know.
I mean, yeah, it does.
SMU paid $200 million to come punch you and all your friends in the mouth.
Just the worst. The worst, man. Okay, let's finish this
Huge
sucker off.
Rothstein.
We have the return of the Holy War, and it is about as climactic as a moist fart. I don't know why this is a 3.5 point line because, I mean, unless Zach Wilson's little brother suddenly has gotten like his can of spinach and he's going to be some kind of superhero. I mean, yeah, would it be the most Big 12 thing ever if Utah managed to upset him? Sure. Right. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. But BYU, I feel like it's just in a whole separate class than Utah. I'm excited to watch the Holy War, but I don't see it as being particularly exciting, even if it is at 9:15. Boys, what do you think?
I mean, I'm kind of bummed that Utah didn't hold up their end of the bargain to make this a top 10 on top 10 matchup like I think most people thought it would be.
Yeah, Chuck Wagons. Man.
But I think if it was in Laval Edwards, I think this would be a blowout for BYU. I do think there's a chance for some Big 12-ness to happen because it is at Rice Eccles and it'll be a home game for Utah. And you can imagine Utah fans, players, whoever, like if there's going to be a season where they win one game, it's going to have to be the BYU game. And they're going to that's their Super Bowl now. As much as I'm sure they hate that term. That's the game that they've got circled that they're going to put everything that they have on.
No doubt. No doubt.
Yeah, and both teams are coming off of bye weeks too. So they both had time to prepare for this. There was 2 full weeks of Twitter hate tweeting, which was absolutely hilarious to watch. I don't think I've ever seen as many hate tweets from Mormons in my entire life. But that was definitely something that I absolutely loved.
You guys are just silly.
Yeah, it there's hate week and then there's like hate week, and they never crossed that line. It was just like, oh, Utah fans drink Coke with ice, and I'm like, what kind of insult is that? Like, I was like, it's hilarious, but like, it was just so weird. I just don't think that Utah is quite there yet. They should have passed off on the Cam Rising era like 3 years ago. They should have developed another quarterback that should have been, in that junior, senior class to where Wilson could have sat out, redshirted his freshman year, learned the entire offense for a year, kind of developed underneath a more veteran presence before he got thrown into this. I think he's athletic. I think he's decent, but I don't quite think he's start day one freshman. I personally also absolutely love that Utah is falling flat on their face. I really don't see Utah getting anywhere near this. And from what I've been reading on Utah Twitter, now that you can read people that blocked you tweets, is that Utah Twitter is an absolute mess. They are genuinely pissed that they might not even make a bowl game this season. And I am here for it, and I love it.
Couldn't happen to a nicer group of folks.
Right? Man, I love this new unblocked feature.
It's funny because, y'all are just now, I mean, this does not go for Ralph because he spent time in the Pac-12 with them, but I just love everyone just now figuring out how much Utah sucks as a former Mountain West fan, right? I'm like, oh, I've been hating these guys, right? Like it's just nice to see everyone else coming into the tent, right? And understanding how terrible Utah fans are. Ralph, take us home. What do you think about this game?
I had a bunch of Utah fans whenever BYU joined the conference tweet at me that like, man, you guys they seem nice, but you guys are going to hate them. They're just terrible, terrible people, and that could not have been more wrong.
I was going to say polar opposite.
Yeah.
Oh man!
Rob, what do you think about
this? I tell you what, if you're not seeing enough hate, I think you're following the wrong accounts because I can point you in the direction of like there's nobody is better at getting under Utah Twitter skin than BYU fans, and it's genuinely one of the more vicious rivalries. It's really this game hadn't been played in 3 years, so it's kind of built up. And if I told you before the season, one of these teams is coming in 8-0, ranked top 10, elite defensive unit. And another one is 105th ranked offense, can't get their quarterback situation figured out. Definitely all of us before the season would have had this flipped. But Sataki, he's gotten it. I don't think he was on the hot seat going into the season, but he's gotten it figured out. They brought in 3 quarterbacks that could play, and Jake Retzlaff is, he's holding the other 2 off. And they kind of do the offense by committee thing, but defensively, I mean, and just against the pass, I think they're holding opponents to 52% completion. this year. Over the course of a whole year, that is insane. And so if Utah wants to win this game, they're going to have to run. The only teams that have given BYU trouble this year had quarterbacks that got out of the pocket and ran. And when Oklahoma State took them to the wire, that was Garrett Rangel that did most of that. It wasn't even Alan Bowman. And so can Isaac Wilson run? We're going to find out. But the Utah thing, it doesn't make sense. Whole offensive line, 6'5", 310 or better. Brent Keating, their pass catching tight end. Out there, Dorian Singer gives them a threat at receiver that they haven't had in forever. Their running back, Micah Bernard's been there forever. He's 23 years old, and yet they can't get it together offensively. However, they are still on defense. They're still as vicious as ever. I would put Utah's defense as the number one unit in this, and their offense is like number 6 behind both special teams. I think that defense gives them a chance. I think playing in Salt Lake gives them a chance. And I'm calling my shot here. I think Utah ruins BYU's season.
Wow.
And that's really the only thing they have to look forward to. So, but yeah, I'm going with the Utes.
We're sending you back to the Pac-12.
Please.
I mean, I kind of hate it, but I kind of agree. I mean, if BYU is going to lose a game this year, it's going to be at Utah.
Yeah, that's the one. Like, I was actually kind of concerned for him going into a couple weeks ago. Is this specific one trap game?
Yeah. And then the college football playoff committee will think long and hard of how can we exclude the Big 12 altogether.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what I hate, because looking at these rankings, if BYU loses, they're going to take SMU with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, they should.
I'd be okay with that.